Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer. For this video, guess what? We've got 9 more cool and strong builds for Elden Ring. You're going to want to check all these out. There's a lot of really powerful ones in here, a lot of fun stuff too. We're going to jump right in at number 9 with Carian Sovereignty. So first things first, I'm going to show you this against a moving target, how to set it up. It's a little bit more difficult. And then we're going to show how well it is against a standing target when we take on the Gargoyle and Kaled, who you can go up behind. Carian Sovereignty does a lot of damage either way. By the way, this Ash of War scales entirely with your intelligence stats, so pump up your intelligence as much as you can, and then of course you can add in different buffs, like we're using Golden Vow, Howl, and Terra Magica, and we can do massive damage with the 2 parts of the Ash of War. Now this Ash of War is chargeable. You do not have to hold it the second time, you just have to hold it down the first time, but you have to hit the additional input to get the follow-up swing and to get massive damage. In general, this is an upgrade from Carian Grandeur. Because if you get the follow-up swing, you're pretty much always going to get more damage than Carian Grandeur. It's really impressive. It's honestly amazing. The only issue with it is, much like Carian Grandeur, it's slow and it takes a little bit to get the entire thing off. But if you do the damage, the reward is amazing for this. Let's jump into equipment and stats. For equipment, we have Magic Milady with Carian Sovereignty. We're using any staff for Terra Magica, any seal for buffs. We have the Rakshasa armor set on for the damage boost. Godfrey icon, it is chargeable. Magic Scorpion Charm, Ritual Swords Talisman. We have the Shard of Alexander, and then we have the Magic tier and Faith tier for buffs. And then now we're going to jump into stats, which of course is intelligence based. So we have 70 intelligence. We have 33 faith with the faith tier, so we could do our buffs, which are Golden Vow, Howl, and Terra Magic. And of course we have 60 vigor. I recommend that for pretty much all DLC builds. 18 mind, 20 endurance. You don't need a lot of mind for this build because odds are you're going to be able to get it off once for massive damage. At number 8, we have a Swift Spear build. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of spears in Elden Ring, but admittingly, this spear has a really cool and fast, unique moveset that I enjoy a lot because you could use it for quick bleed build-up in combination with Impaling Thrust for good posture damage. So yeah, the whole concept here is just get in as many quick hits as you can. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of a pure spear moveset unless you're using a shield with it, but this one specifically has a very fast moveset. Take advantage of that blood affinity and build up bleed fast. By the way, we've got some other great builds later on. We've got 2 amazing builds for Guts Greatsword I cannot wait to get into. And then we have a build for the Smithscript Greathammer, which a lot of people have requested. Really fun weapon to use, by the way. Can't wait to get into those. On another note, I want to thank the community lately because you guys have been amazing. So many nice comments on these videos lately. I can't wait to do the New Game Plus 7 builds. I'm in the process of moving my characters along on Xbox as we speak, but I appreciate everybody that's been subbing. It's been amazing lately. I mean, it's always great being able to do what I love doing at the end of the day, but lately there's just been so much nice comments. There's like this influx of nice comments, and it's been incredible. So thank you all for that. Thank you for subbing, and we're going to continue on making great Elden Ring content and hopefully diving into other games soon as well. Alright, I went off topic, but there's not a lot to talk about here. I wanted to make sure I covered the Swift Spear and made a build for it. I'm not a huge spear person though, but for the people that like spears, this one has a very fast and unique moveset that I enjoy. It's definitely solid for building up bleed and getting a decent amount of damage. Impaling Thrust does a surprising amount of posture damage on it too. Let's jump into equipment and stats. And we have the Blood Swift Spear, plus 25 preferably with Impaling Thrust. We have any seal for buffs. We have the Rakshasa set on for extra damage. Shard of Alexander, Ritual Swords Talisman. We have Melissa's Prosthesis, Lord of Blood's Exaltation. Then we have the Thorny tier and Faith tier as well. Alright, let's jump into stats on this one. By the way, this weapon gets an S in Keen Affinity, so that's something interesting about it, but it still doesn't get a lot of AR because it's just a regular spear. We have 60 Vigor, 17 Mind, 28 Endurance. We have 45 Dexterity with Melissa's Prosthesis, and 45 Arcane, 25 Faith with the Faith tier. And then we're using Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength to buff this build, and once again, it is a spear build. If you could add a shield to it, it'll be even better. Alright, let's jump into the next one here. At number 7, we have the Repeating Crossbow. So there's kind of 8 builds, well 8.5 builds in this one if you don't want to count the Repeating Crossbow, because you don't really need stats for it. But I did make a build around it because it did receive a slight buff in 1.13, which is really interesting. So basically it gets a little bit more damage now, and if you use it with the flaming bolts rather than explosive bolts, because explosive bolts, believe it or not, don't count as fire damage, so you can't boost them. You could actually boost the flaming bolts with the Fire Scorpion Charm and the Fire tier to get more damage. And you could use Blood Bolts too to build up bleed quickly. That's another option you have. I just like using the Flaming Bolts for a good amount of fire damage, and the crossbow is really fun to use. It's definitely something you should pick up if you haven't tried yet, especially as a secondary weapon. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the repeating crossbow, preferably plus 10. We have flaming bolts, of course. You can stack 99 of them at one time. You go through them fast with this. Any seal for buffs. We're using Rakshasa set for the extra damage. We have the Arrow's Reach Talisman, Arrow's Sting Talisman, Ritual Swords Talisman. We have the Fire Scorpion Charm. Then we're going to be using the Flame Tier and Faith Tier. Don't worry too much about your stats other than the required stats. It doesn't scale with anything. And at number 6, we have the All Dexterity Build, and this build focuses on using the Dancing Blades of Rana in combination with the Falx, which is awesome because you could switch between both Ashes of War depending on your situation. So as you can see, we started out with the Dancing Blades and then immediately hit the two-handed button to switch to the Falx, and then we're going to use that to build up bleed as fast as we can. You can switch back and forth between the two, and then you actually get a moveset between the two, a combination moveset that you could use with LB or L1. I got a small frame rate drop here because I had my capture menu up, but I'm going to show you real quick. You can use the combination moveset with L1 or LB, which is really good, if I can hit it there. And yeah, then you can just switch between Ashes of War, and they're both amazing. Let's jump into equipment and stats. For equipment, we have the Dancing Blade of Rana plus 10 preferably, the Falx plus 10 preferably, any seal for buffs. We're using part of the Rakshasa set on and the Grave Bird set for the jump attack damage. Shard of Alexander, Lord of Blood's Exaltation. We have the Winged Sword Insignia, Melissa's Prosthesis. We have the Thorny tier and Dexterity tier. All right, let's jump into stats for this one. By the way, you could go for 15 Faith, use the Faith tier like I always do, and you'll end up with the same stats. I was just using the Dex tier, and then I had 25 Faith. We have 60 Vigor, 25 Faith, 85 Dexterity with Dexterity tier, 26 Endurance, 18 Mind. And of course, I have different gauntlets on so that I can hit 51 poise. If you want to run part of the Rakshasa set on with the Gravebird set, you'll end up with, I believe, less than 51. We're using Golden Vow and Flame Ring Strength. And the next one up here at number 5, we have the Dragon Storm build. This is going to use the Dragon Hunter's Katana in combination with an offhand regular Great Katana that's going to be using Storm Blade. So you could switch between both, have more range, and have a really good main weapon. And yeah, that's the Dragon Hunter's Katana, which has Dragon Wound Slash, which is awesome and chargeable, does a lot of damage to dragons. And then for anything else, you could back off, switch to two-handing the Great Katana, and then use Storm Blade, which does a lot of damage, especially if you're factoring in using the new Storm Talisman, which is awesome, the one you get from Divine Beast for extra damage. I really like the Dragon Wound Slash, though. It's an amazing Ash of War that's super cool and very convenient for facing dragons. And of course, you get a two-handed Great Katana moveset, but that's not going to be amazing for building up successive hits or anything. You'll do a little bit of poise damage. You've got good AR on both, but overall, the two-handed moveset for Great Katanas for me so far is just okay. But yeah, it is cool being able to use both together and then switch between both. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Dragon Hunter's Katana, preferably plus 10. We have the Quality Great Katana. We're going for a quality build here with Stormblade, part of Rakshasa set on. Any seal for buffs. Shard of Alexander, Godfrey Icon. We have the Enraged Divine Beast, Melissa's Prosthesis, Greenburst Crystal tier, and Faith tier. And let's jump into stats for this amazing Katana build. I really like the Great Katana class. I feel like we should have gotten more of them, though. 60 Vigor, 20 Mind, 31 Endurance. We have 40 Strength and 50 Dexterity, 25 Faith with the Faith tier. And make sure you have a good amount of endurance for this build as well. That's why I'm using the Stamina tier, because you're going to chew through it quickly using these Ashes and the two-handed Great Katana moveset. For our buffs, as usual, we're using Golden Vow for 15% more attack and defense, and Flame Grip and Strength as well. And at number 4, we have an All-Holy Caster build. This is going to work around the Light of Miquella in combination with Multi-Layered Ring of Light, which is what we're going to be boosting primarily, because Light of Miquella is just okay, but Multi-Layered Ring of Light is really good, especially in the DLC. And here we're taking on the Falling Star Beast, which is in, I believe, the Hinterlands or whatever it's called. And this one's not actually too bad. I take some extra damage because I get a little bit greedy. But overall, the area that you fight him in is relatively large. There's a lot of space here, which makes the fight a little bit easier than normal. And this is where the terrain ends up trapping me a little bit. That's going to happen from time to time. I try to roll out of it, wasn't paying attention to where I was, and I take some extra damage. Now, Light of Miquella is just going to be what you use primarily for bigger targets or if they stand at it. Mainly, though, you're going to be focused on Multi-Layered Ring of Light, which is substantially better. Yeah, I'm really loving that incantation. I feel like Light of Miquella should have gotten a buff, especially since it's from the last boss, so you'd expect it to be a little bit better. Between that and the swords, I feel like we got less than what we should have got for the final boss, especially since it has 3 options, and they're all kind of mid. Yeah, by the way, the circlet of light that I have on, as well as the dry leaf seal in my offhand, we're using the good scaling in the Erdtree seal, is going to boost multi-layered ring of light. It will not boost light of Miquella, but it will boost multi-layered ring of light substantially. So you want to have both those. Let's jump into equipment and stats. And we have the Erdtree seal plus 10 for the good scaling, 354 scaling there. And then we have the dry leaf seal in the offhand for the boost. We have the circlet of light, that's going to be the biggest deal there. And then 51 poise, of course. We have the sacred scorpion charm, Flux canvas talisman, Godfrey icon, ritual swords talisman. And then we have the holy tier and faith tier as well. And for stats on this one, we're a faith build here. We're a pure caster build, so you're going to pump up faith. We have 81 faith. The extra 1 point is from that circlet of light or whatever it's called. So we have 80 faith as our base faith, 60 vigor, 23 mind, 20 endurance, only 15 strength and 15 dexterity. We're going to be using Golden Vow, Hellish Brewery. Blessings Boot is great for some extra HP. It can give you an extra flask in battle as the fight goes on. We're using multi-layered Ring of Light, of course, that's what we're boosting mainly. And then we're using Light of Miquella too for bigger targets. All right, now at number 3, we have Guts Crucible Wings build. Crucible Wings is excellent. It's even better with Guts Greatsword because you get a lot of posture damage and you get massive damage on the Ash of War. If you combine charge attacks in as well, you can break posture frequently and do a lot of damage. Sure, we're going to take a few hits here, no doubt, because Rolana is relatively tough. I'm still learning her moveset. She's very difficult in terms of being aggressive, but we're going to be able to get in a lot of hits here with Crucible Wings itself, and then mixing in charged attacks. You want to throw in regular hits as well. You'll get great AR out of Guts Greatsword. Yeah, I didn't really think to go back and use this weapon that much because I've been trying to use mainly the new DLC weapons. I've made my focus kind of using the new DLC weapons, but going back, grabbing Guts Greatsword, and then using it for several of the different Ashes of War, this one and the next one, it's just amazing because it's just a phenomenal weapon. Yeah, it truly is just so great in terms of AR and how much damage you can get out of Ashes of War. I end up missing here, and then you can jump these moons. Don't forget you can do that. And then, of course, we're going to finish this off with another Crucible Wings for 5,700 damage, which is pretty solid. All right, in a second here, we're going to go over equipment stats, everything you need to know for an awesome Crucible Wings build that focuses around a Sacred Guts Greatsword. We're going to go over everything you need to know, and I recommend trying this one out for sure. Let's jump into equipment. And we have Guts Greatsword and Sacred Affinity with Crucible Wings. We have any seal for buffs. We're using the Rakshasa set again here for extra damage. Shard of Alexander, Ritual Sword Talisman, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Two-Handed Sword Talisman, which is awesome for your charged hits. We have the Holy tier and Spike Crack tier as well. Let's jump into stats. We have 60 Vigor, 23 Mind, 35 Endurance. We have 31 Strength in case you want to single hand this. We have 12 Dexterity, 50 Faith. It doesn't have amazing Faith scaling. It just has really high base damage, so 50 is fine here. Of course, we're using Golden Vow and Flame Grip Strength. If you want 5% more damage, you could use Hellish Brewery, but keep in mind you'll take additional damage. And in number 2, we have the Guts Fire build. We went for Fire Affinity for the C scaling, and so we could two-hand this. But if you want to use the same stats as the last build, you can go for Flame Art as well. For both of them, you're going to get over 950 AR, which is pretty impressive once the fire is on the weapon. And we're going to be using Flame Spear here, which is chargeable and does massive damage with Guts Greatsword. If you're ever struggling with Divine Beast, by the way, 0 fire resistance, so anything with fire will do massive damage. The Blasphemous Blade will take care of this fight really easily, as well as a build like this one, because you could just do charge hits, do massive damage, posture damage, and it'll take the full complement to fire damage. And of course, once again, we're mixing in charge attacks because with the fire on this, you're going to get massive damage out of those two, which is pretty impressive. I really like this build, and I like being able to put Guts Greatsword on fire with this. You couldn't really use Flaming Strike with it, but now we could use Flame Spear, and that's pretty awesome. Let's jump into equipment. And we have the Fire Greatsword plus 25 with Flame Spear. We have any seal for buffs. We have the Rakshasa set on, of course, for the extra damage. Shard of Alexander. We have the Two-Handed Sword Talisman. Fire Scorpion Charm. Godfrey icon, keep in mind this is chargeable, so extra damage there. Flame tier and Spike Crack tier. And let's jump into stats on this one. We have 60 Vigor, 22 Mind, 35 Endurance. We have 54 Strength. That's going to be over 80 when we're two-handing this, so good damage with the fire scaling and C scaling that we get there. 15 Dexterity, 25 Faith, no Faith tier. That's our base Faith. We hit well over 51 poise. We're using Golden Vow, of course, and Flame Grip Me Strength. I really recommend using this build, by the way. It has the potential to do a lot of damage. It does massive fire damage. These last two are great with Guts Greatsword. All right, and now we're on to number 1, which is the Smithscript Hammer. I'm going to show how to build this 2 different ways. We're going to do a regular build here for it with Lion's Claw, and then I'm going to show how to build around the throwing attacks as well. So if you go for blood affinity, you could actually throw bleed, which is awesome. However, the issue here, especially against Radahn, is the fact that the charge attacks, the charge throw, have a extremely long animation. They take a very long time to use them. However, they do good poise damage and good bleed buildup from a distance. And you can get a lot of posture breaks if you throw something like Lion's Claw on the weapon. By the way, Savage Lion's Claw is good, but regular Lion's Claw is still better for a lot of situations. It also seems to do more poise damage, and for Savage Lion's Claw, you're trying to get 2 hits essentially to get what you would get with regular Lion's Claw, which is why I chose regular Lion's Claw for this build. And don't get me wrong, they buffed Savage Lion's Claw. It's quite good, and it's really fun to use. Out of the two, which one is more fun to use? Savage Lion's Claw for sure, but regular classic Lion's Claw is still amazing on most weapons. By the way, in Phase 2, my recommendation, I've said this before, but stay as close as possible to Radahn, because that way you don't get hit by the additional holy damage. If you stay close to him, you can avoid a lot of that, dodge close, and try to build up posture damage using Lion's Claw. If you're on New Game Plus like here, you could do about 3 Lion's Claw it's going to take in total in order to posture break him. On later New Game cycles, New Game Plus cycles, it's probably going to take you about 4 in total, but they're going to have to be consistent. He's got a lot of long combos that could reset his posture, because if 6 or 8 seconds goes by, it's going to reset in its entirety. Also, I know the music for this video was kind of random that I chose. Be sure to comment below if you like just the game music, if you like relaxing background music, if you like more intense music, like what your vibe is in terms of that, or what you like when you're watching videos, build videos and such. I'm curious as to your thoughts. I chose something really light for this video because it felt fitting for a kind of a fun build video. By the way, originally earlier this week when I did that build video on Friday, it was actually going to be top 12 fun builds, and then I just added several more and turned them into 2 separate build videos. This one though has a couple really powerful ones, like Carian Sovereignty is amazing, and I like the Smithscript Greathammer as well too. It's pretty awesome. Although I'll leave that video in the description if you haven't seen it. That other one has the Sword of Night, though. The Sword of Night was pretty amazing, too. The Guts builds on this one, though, can do a lot of damage on any New Game Plus cycle. Guts Greatsword is always reliable. After this fight, I'll show you how to build around the throwing part if you want to do it in Blood Affinity, because I like the bleed build up. Now, as far as regular throwing hits for the throwing action on the charge attacks, if you go for Heavy Affinity, you can build it up to where it does over 2,000 damage, but you're not getting any status effect, and that's kind of just okay. Yeah, I'd rather have the status effect, because for most bosses and enemies, I've noticed with the throwing weapons, especially the better ones, not really the dagger, that one's kind of just, I don't know whether it's bugged, but it takes forever to build up. For the rest of them, it's generally about 3 or 4 hits, maybe 5 at most, before you get a bleed proc. And we took down Radahn again. I've learned a lot of his moveset. I did get hit there more than I usually do, but it's just difficult to time some of the longer animation attacks. That's why I do like regular Lion's Claw over Savage Lion's Claw against specifically Radahn, because he just has a lot of long and quick combos, jump into equipment. Blood, Smithscript, Greathammer with Lion's Claw. We're using the Dragon Communion Seal. We have the Greybird's Armor on, Axe Talisman, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Shard of Alexander, Smithing Talisman, Spike Crack Tier, and Faith Tier for buffs. And let's jump into stats on this build. We have 60 Vigor, 18 Mind, 28 Endurance. We have 40 Strength. That's going to be 60 when you two-hand this. We have 45 Arcane, 15 Faith. That's going to be 25 Faith with the Faith tier, which will make your levels add up to 160, by the way. Yeah, so you're going to use that so you can do your buffs, which are Golden Bow, Flame Grip, and Strength, Blessings, Boon. And now let's talk about throwing the hammer itself. Now, throwing the hammer is really cool. Even in Blood Affinity, you're going to get between 12 and 1500 damage, and you're going to get some decent bleed procs as well. And there's the bleed proc right there on the 3rd throw. A lot of enemies, you're going to find it's going to be the 3rd throw. Some bosses with a little bit more resistances, it's going to be about 4 or 5. But overall, throwing hammer, you're going to get between 12 and 1500 damage and a lot of bleed procs. This is the setup here. I'm just going to show it on screen real quick. Not too much different from before. Thanks for watching this one. I appreciate everybody that tuned into this fun list build video. These are awesome to do. If you want to see more fun list build videos, or if you want to see more overpowered stuff, be sure to comment below. Also, be sure to sub if you're not subbed yet and you love Elden Ring content. Also, for the New Game Plus 7 builds, I'm moving my character along on Xbox as we speak, trying to do some of that. So hopefully this upcoming weekend I can post some of those, I'm hoping. They're going to be a lot more of the overpowered stuff, of course, because of the boss HP. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.